So, in today's film, we'll be discussing E.T. the Extraterrestrial and 2001 A Space Odyssey. Now, E.T. the Extraterrestrial tells a story about an alien who gets stranded on Earth and becomes unlikely friends with this little boy named Elliot, and they're just trying to help him get home, and he ends up getting sick, and a lot of tragic things happen, which we'll go into. Now, to start this off, is E.T. the Extraterrestrial science fiction or fantasy? And that's a tricky question. It's both. Though it does contain aspects of science fiction like aliens and space travel, there are definitely a lot of magical things occurring within this movie, like the power. He's able to heal people. He's able to make plants grow. Very interesting things that he can do. And I also want to say that this movie is almost a myth in itself. It's a collective experience, a shared experience that anyone can relate to, kids or adults, and it's teaching us a lesson. And the lesson is what choice is ethical and what choice is unethical to make. And it's really interesting because the children within this movie are making the ethical, simple decisions. They're doing what's right, what they think is justice. While the adults don't care as much, their innocence has been lost, they're making the wrong decisions, they care more about what benefits them than what benefits others. And we really see this hero pattern from Campbell play out within this movie, where Elliot hears the call to adventure. He meets the mentor, which is E.T. He crosses the threshold. He faces these tests and tribulations. He has to keep E.T. a secret. He has to make sure he has to help him when he gets sick. He has to help him get home. He faces the ordeals with the federal agents, and then at the end he returns with the elixir, which is when E.T. leaves and Elliot leaves, and although they're not going to be together, they know they're both going to be okay. And the symbolism of this movie is also very interesting. The key is showing the fear for bureaucracy and government, even though we don't trust government, and people are doing things to benefit themselves. Shows that kind of ugly side of humanity a little bit. And one of the things I love about this movie actually is that they use real scientists and doctors within it, so it makes it seem very realistic. And they really know what they make it seem like they know what they're doing. The stuff that they're just calling out, and just calling out because of the script. Like, they know what these things do. And I think that offers a really interesting component within the movie as well. And the stance this movie takes on non-violence. It kind of it shows a lot of compassion, a lot of relating to the Indian religions like Hinduism and Buddhism, very non-violent stance, to the point where Elliot has such a relationship and connection with E.T. formed that he can't even kill a frog. He liberates them all. He lets them all free. E.T. is this healer. He's this, he's compassionate. He says ouch, and he says be good, and he tries to heal people and take care of them. And he has a very strong connection with other living things. His species are botanists, so they care about the life, the planets, the plants. And his relationship with plant life and other life, like Elliot's dog, and the flowers of this house, I can even relate to the vegetation god in a way, because his health is a direct correlation to how the vegetation within the household is doing. When his sickness falls, when he dies, the flowers fall sick, the flowers die, and when he resurrects, the flower gave back to life. He is the deity that controls, that helps these things occur. And it's very magical in a sense, but it definitely is, you can see the correlation between the vegetation god and E.T. The forest is also very interesting. The connection like how we get lost within the forest, and how E.T. is connected to all these like nature, and how he feels at home in the forest is a very interesting concept as well. Now, a lot of magic components happening in this movie has to do with E.T.'s power. He can, not only does he have this connection where he feels Elliot's feelings and Elliot feels his feelings, he even gets Elliot drunk by drinking, and through that relationship, Elliot gets drunk therefore, which is also a very interesting magical, weird component going on. And he has telekinesis and magic flight. He makes all these bikes fly with all these kids, and it's a very interesting, magical scene to witness as well. And I think they do a great job at doing the cinematography within that moment, especially at night when him and Elliot are flying for the first time. The cinematography is just incredible, and we really just see how this is a myth within itself. It's trying to teach us something. He is the vegetation god. He has these correlations to it. And maybe them coming to Earth is a ritual within himself. Maybe E.T., the lighting of the red, and how they do this probably to almost every planet maybe that's a ritual for their species. That'd be a very interesting take on it. Now we also see that death and rebirth are also shown within this as a vegetation god, because E.T. dies but he comes back, and that's a magical within itself, because he's only reawakening because he's going to return home. And we can see the death and rebirth process and the cycle of that, and how this all revolves around Halloween is very also an interesting concept as well. Within the movie Space Odyssey, which is written by Kubrick and Clark, we see a more visual experience. There's not a lot of talking, and I was even confused at times. I had to rewatch a couple scenes to really understand what was going on. And we have to ask the question, does Space Odyssey count as a myth? And I think it absolutely does. First, let's define myth. Myth seeks to answer the questions that we have about where we come from, or where we are going, and myth provides imagery and symbol and story in response to all of this. And Kubrick wanted to make this movie a myth. He chose to have this movie explain where we came from and how we came to be and how we evolved, and it explains the path we will follow and the levels of evolution that we are reaching. And it's a myth of progress. It captures both the optimism of the space age while also revealing the dark side of human nature by using Hal. And it follows this narrative pattern of a creation myth where it starts from darkness and formless and void to light and form and object, which is very interesting. It has a cosmogony thing going on, especially in the beginning where the camera pans to darkness and formlessness, and then it goes to light in the image of Earth. It's showing that from nothing Earth came to be. And I also want to point out that at the end, when he's a child in a sack, I think that represents this new Superman-like character who represents the next stage of evolution man is going to be reaching after being man. And the monoliths are very important also within this movie. They're these black, smooth, rectangular objects, and although they're faceless, you can consider them the gods beyond the gods within this myth going on. This higher power that we're answering to, that's allowing us to evolve and is giving us the power to do so. And we realize that the axis mundi within this movie is the spacecraft Discovery 1. And how Kubrick portrayed it being a very isolated, slow, lonely place gives a really great contrast compared to other new space movies that have a lot of action going on, a lot of fast pace going on. But the movie, a realistic perception of space would be very slow, very slow moving, very isolated. And we see this hierophany happening here because there's this sudden manifestation of this sacred monolith in this, and not just a monolith, all these occurrences in this mundane, normal world. This sudden manifestation of this godlike intellectual thing that offers us intellect appearing out of nowhere. And I think that's very interesting as well. A couple things I want to also ask and put into this video is Hal human-like or not? I had a hard time answering that question. At moments, I was like, yes, Hal is human-like, but I also think no. Because although Hal makes a conscious decision to kill people and choose to put itself and be selfish and greedy over everyone else, he doesn't experience other things like humans experience, like guilt and sadness and empathy and compassion. So I think Hal really just represents the bad part of being a human, not necessarily the good part of being a human. And I think that's what HAL 9000 purpose within the movie, showing the bad parts of human nature that we have to combat. And I think that's what this myth is really trying to show us. It's trying to show us how this human behavior affects us and how not to follow this human behavior. Now, what pushes forward evolution? I believe that violence does do so, but I also think competition does so as well. Violence, for example, with the monkeys at the beginning, when they were fighting over the water hole, and only the reason the monkey won was because he had a tool that was given to him by the monolith, the intellect for the monolith to create tools. But we even see in things like the space race how we're still on this violent competition to be on top, to be the evolutionary best that we can be, almost like Darwinism. Like we have to be the best that we can be. And in this movie, we see that technology, the things that we create to make us better, hurts us rather than benefits us. And the example for that is HAL. And we see that this whole occurrence, especially at the end when he enters the last dimension, he sees the last monolith after seeing the one in Jupiter being transported. That he sees that his life, the life he's going through, growing old and then becoming young like a baby. That's the death and rebirth process that he's experiencing, and maybe this monolith, this god, this faceless god, is allowing him to experience this sort of ritualistic component within the movie. Overall, although the movie was weird and hard to follow at times, I really enjoyed it. I enjoyed the cinematography and the intense music, and there were still moments that I found myself lost at, and I wish there was a little more explanation, but I think that was the point of the movie. It's supposed to not answer all your questions, but it does answer the question, the myth of where we come from and how we came to be. Well, thank you and have a great day.